As you recall in an earlier training video, I briefly introduced you to the timeline. Here I want to go over it a bit more in depth. Now, the purpose of the timeline is to give you a high-level view of your project. For starters here, when I look at the project in the timeline, I can see when it begins and when it ends. Pretty simple, right? I mean, I don't have to come down here in the Gantt chart and scroll over to the right, which, by the way, when I do, you can see that this window here that it's focused on also moves over to the right as well. Look at this and go, let's see, it ends about September the 27th. It shows me right there. Now, instead of scrolling down the Gantt chart, I can come up here, hover over that blue bar until I can see, well, it changes to a dark blue, and I get a four-way arrow. That means that I can go ahead and pan, or click and drag, and pan the view in the Gantt chart to the left or to the right. You can see down below in the Gantt chart, as I move back, it moves it back to the beginning or start of all the tasks on the project date of October the 31st. Let me go ahead and scroll back up to the top here. Now, if you turned off the timeline by accident, or you want to turn it off, or turn it back on, either way, come up here, click on the View tab, and go to the Split View group, and there it is. Uncheck it, check it again. You can also right-click on the timeline and uncheck it to get rid of it, and of course come back up here on the View tab and check in the Split View group timeline. Other things you can do with this bar here as far as panning back and forth is you can actually zoom in on the project. Right now, if you look at it, if I go to Wednesday, September the 1st, it's from the 1st through the 5th in this short period here. If I want to zoom in, then I can come up here and hover over the left-hand side of that panning window until I can see arrows pointing in opposite directions, and click and drag to push that in, and you can see it starts zooming in down below in the Gantt chart. Now I have to scroll twice as far to get anywhere, but it's a little bit more detailed when it comes to the date here. Finishes on the 27th. There's the 26th, 27th, 28th, and the 29th. And as you hover over a number, it includes both the 27th, 28th, unless of course I go ahead and click and drag and zoom in more, and there we go. There's the 27th, there's the 28th, there's the 29th, and then I can click and drag that back and forth and have a lot of fun. Okay, go ahead and zoom back out. Now, in addition to the timeline that you're looking at, which is for the overall project, you can actually add tasks to the timeline by coming down here and right-clicking on a task and then going down to Add to Timeline. Adds it right there, so I can, again, the purpose of it is a high-level view of my project. I mean, I'm picking out elements that I want to focus on this timeline. Otherwise, I wouldn't pull anything up and I'd just leave it all down below, and, well, just if I have a lot of tasks, I'd have to scroll up and down to see them all. But this way, I can just quickly glance up here, get a high-level view, and say, okay, well, right now, this is what I'm focusing on, examine software. It goes from that date to that date. Cool. Let's go ahead and add another one. Let me right-click on this one, and also add it to the timeline and see how it's stacked. I can actually change the order of its stacking, so I can click and drag this one, put it up here, and it switches it. So now examine software is down below, click and drag, examine software is up above. You get the idea. And then to get rid of it, you can of course go ahead and right-click on it and say remove from timeline. And then you'll notice that when I right-click on it, by default, detailed timeline selected. If I go ahead and deselect that, I don't get the thicker view. I just get a thin view of a timeline here with the task that's been added to it. I have to hover over it to be able to see it, but that way I can add more tasks to it. And if I just want to graphically look at it and not necessarily have to see the task name there. But in any case, if I want more details, right-click on it and say Detailed Timeline. You can also display the task as a callout instead of an actual bar here by right-clicking on it and say you want to display it as a callout so it pops up above, so you can still get the high-level view of your project here without the task being overlaid on top of it in a bar format. And in order to do this, it has to be in Detailed View, because if I right-click on it and I deselect Detailed View, it's gone. So let me right-click on it again, go back to Detailed Timeline. It's there because I haven't removed it, unless of course I right-click on it and remove it from the timeline. Let me go ahead and right-click on this one again, and let's add it to the timeline. And if I come down here and let me scroll back, and I come up here on the timeline and I right-click on it, I can go to that selected task. When I right-click on it, go down to it, it takes me right to the selected task over in the Gantt chart. I can go this way, and not only can I right-click on it in the timeline to go to the selected task, but you can also right-click it, well, the task in the table here, and scroll to the task, and it will take you right to that task there, which coincidentally all the other tasks are on the same date or begin on October the 31st. So that's why we see them all at once here. Okay, the last thing I want to go over is how you can copy the timeline. Come up here outside, don't right click on the task, but right click in a blank area of the timeline so you can get the shortcut menu copy timeline. You can do it for email, presentation, or full size. If you do it for email, it's a smaller version, presentation is a larger version, and then full size is the original size. First, let's do it for email. Select that. Let me go ahead and come down here and right click on my Word document to open up a new Word document so I can show you what it looks like when we paste it here. Let me hit enter a couple of times, come back up here, go to the Home tab to the clipboard group and click paste. So that's for email, about yay big. Okay, hit enter a couple of times, come back to project, right click in a blank area, copy timeline for presentation, go back to my document, let's go ahead and click paste, hit enter a couple of times and then go back to project, right click in a blank area, copy timeline full size, go back to the document, paste, and there you go. So that's the size of it for your emails, for presentations, and the full original size. Sweet. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.